So Estancia Cristina, super stoked to be sharing this with you. I'm actually up in Hood River, Oregon right now, and it was so hot yesterday while I was redoing this presentation, and it was nice to just see glaciers and cold for some time. So get ready to see some amazing pictures. First, what I want to do is just talk about like location and in particular and why I think Estancia Cristina is such a unique offering in this area. So we're looking at Argentine Patagonia here. This basically shaded in area is the entirety of what's called Los Glaciares National Park. It's the largest national park in Argentine Patagonia. Just across the border here, you have Torres del Paine National Park in Chile. So combined, these areas are massive. I think that Argentine Patagonia gets overlooked a lot. When most people think of Patagonia, they're like Torres del Paine. There's that kind of iconic shot in their mind. And Argentina kind of gets set second place for some reason. This national park is 2,300 square miles in entirety, Los Glaciares National Park. It's massive. And one thing about it, it's very rugged and very inaccessible. It's more typified that you have the Argentine Patagonian steppes coming up to the mountains, huge lakes, and then you have these massive glaciers coming off of the southern Patagonia ice cap. So this area is accessed by everybody flies into El Calafate Airport. El Calafate has multiple flights throughout the day coming from Buenos Aires. There's also a couple of flights, I think, from Ushuaia, from Peninsula Valdez area. There's seasonally flights to Bariloche as well, but that's the access point. So people coming to Argentine Patagonia and Los Glaciares National Park are coming into El Calafate. El Calafate, there's something like 8,000 hotel beds there. They get, prior to the pandemic, I think that in 2019, they had something like 650,000 visitors that flew into El Calafate during the season. And the majority of these people that are doing this, what they're coming here to see is getting access to what's called the Perito Moreno Glacier. So from downtown El Calafate, it's about an hour drive out where the Perito Moreno Glacier, you've all seen pictures of this. Many of you have probably been there. And that's kind of the one main thing everyone's coming to see is to go see the front of that glacier, watch it calve into the lake. And then some people might spend another day in Calafate and they go on. But, you know, people don't explore this park deeply because it's very inaccessible. One of the other popular areas is people will then drive from El Calafate 3 hours up Route 40, and then get over to the town of El Chalten, where you have the Fitzroy Range. So that's great for hiking and backpacking, exploring, climbing. It's a very popular climbing town. So I'm kind of putting these up here as a reference to show you that within the entirety of the national park, you have 650,000 visitors. The majority of them are coming just to go to Perito Moreno Glacier. You have a small number that are making the drive up to go trekking and hiking in the Fitzroys. But what's unique about Estancia Cristina is it's here. It's right in the middle. I mean, absolutely slam dunk in the middle of the national park, and it's super inaccessible. The only way you can get here is by boat. There's no roads that get to Estancia Cristina. It's right next to the Uppsala Glacier, which you'll see a bunch of pictures of, but its location is like, if you want to come explore this park and you want to see like prime raw Patagonian wilderness, this is where you want to go to Estancia Cristina. So as I said, you can only get there by boat. Where am I having on my picture of my boat? Anyways, we'll see the boat. So a little bit about getting in here. So our boat leaves pretty early. So people will need to be in the town of El Calafate the night before, spending the night in El Calafate to then make the departure out to Estancia Cristina in the morning. A couple ways you can do that. People want to fly up early from Buenos Aires to El Calafate. They would have time to go see the Perito Moreno Glacier, have that in the afternoon, spend the night in El Calafate, and the next day they would head out to Estancia Cristina. So we do pickups for people in El Calafate around 7:30 in the morning, and then you're driving about 45 minutes out of El Calafate to the port of Puerto Bandera, boarding our catamaran, the Chinook, to head out to Cristina. That boat, it's about a 2.5-hour voyage to get out to the Estancia. On the way out, the regular service leaves at 5:30 from the Estancia, gets to Puerto Bandera 6:45. However, for overnight guests, this is new this year. We're changing this, that people that are spending 2 or more nights with us out at Estancia Cristina, we're having an earlier departure that's going to get people back to Calafate around 5:15 starting. So they'll have options. There's about 3 different flights in the evening that go back to Buenos Aires. Currently, it was much later that we were returned, and that was always a problem. People were forced to spend another night in El Calafate. We're changing that now, so people will have ample time. When they leave Cristina, they can even go see Perito Moreno Glacier that afternoon, or they can get to the El Calafate airport and fly down to Buenos Aires. So starting out, the journey out here is unbelievable. You can visit Cristina as a day trip. I'll talk about this a bit more in the end, but this is the first experience. This is like the first expedition that guests go on, is that this 2.5, 3 hour boat trip out here. For scale, this is the boat you can see down here in the bottom right corner. And I just love this picture for its scale of like putting into perspective how wild the scenery is here. So as you're going out here, you're passing massive icebergs that are coming off the Uppsala, all these different glaciers coming off of the ice caps. So it's truly remarkable, like saying it's a 3 hour boat trip. It's not as a 3 hour boat trip. The whole time you're passing massive icebergs, passing, waterfalls that are chundering off, passing lush forest, seeing rainbows, seeing condors soar. It's an amazing, amazing journey, taking you deep, deep, deep into Los Glaciares National Park. We do go up. This is the Uppsala Glacier, which is one of the largest that spill off the southern Patagonia ice cap. This is about as far as that we can navigate safely up to it, because there are, calvings of the glacier, which produces waves. So on the way into Estancia Cristina, they go up into this kind of bay at the base of Uppsala Glacier, and then we'll swing back around to get to Estancia Cristina. And this also puts into perspective, you can see the boat coming in, and here's the Estancia down in the foreground, and this huge, massive peak of Cerro Norte in the background. That's the backdrop. So people are just like mind blown getting in here, the whole journey in, just like, wow, this is unbelievable terrain. And then to arrive at this Estancia in the absolute middle of nowhere blows people's mind. And here's just a couple pictures, again, just showing the setting of where Estancia Cristina is and the surroundings of those wild peaks and glaciers. This is looking back towards the channel that people have just navigated up. And again, a kind of close-up shot, seeing those hanging glaciers in the background coming down off of it and looking back up towards Cerro Norte. So I mean, once you're here, it's just like turning around 360-degree views is mind-blowing where the location of Estancia Cristina is. Those of you that know me, I'm a super geek when it comes to history. And that's one of the things that I personally think is one of my favorite things about Estancia Cristina. When you think about a lot of Patagonia lodges, most Patagonia lodges we think of in Torres del Paine or up in El Chente, and they've been purposely built for tourists in the last, 10, 15, 20 years. Whereas Estancia Cristina has a history that dates back to like 1910. Basically, it was a English family, the Masters family, arrived in Patagonia in 1900. Their kids were born there. They ended up getting land rights to this estancia, and so they moved out here. And I think in like 1911 to begin this estancia, and so they've been living there since 1911, raising children here, which just blows, I think, visitors' minds when they think about being out there nowadays and thinking about this family raising children out in the middle of nowhere. They were living here before the park was established. The national park was created in 1937. They were still, running. Actually, I'm not going to go through all this history, but just to put it into perspective, one of the things when people during a stay at Estancia Cristina is they will go and visit the old sheep shearing barn. The Masters family, it was a sheep ranch. I mean, they had something like 50,000 head of sheep at the beginning. Sorry, I got to let my dog up. My sheepdog. So this is the sheep shearing barn, and in it they have created an incredible museum about the history of Estancia Cristina and about the family. And it's just, remarkable to think about living out here in, say, the 1920s, so isolated. I mean, these people were so resilient. They were so self-sufficient in what they did, building their own boats by hand. This museum is super well done, just talking about the history of it, the creation of the national park, the struggles they went through economically with the decline in wool prices after World War II, the creation of the national park, them being grandfathered in, and then the family kind of dying off, because it's called Estancia Cristina because their daughter actually died of pneumonia out there, and there was no basically like heir to the family's right to the estancia. So amazing, amazing history. And this museum, I love it. I love displays like this. One of the sons is really into like ham radio operation, and he has all these cards of like where he made contact with different radio stations around the world, and thinking about him sitting out there in like 1930, talking with people in the outback of Australia is super cool. So I love the museum. I love the history of it. And I think that that's what makes this unique, is that compared to other modern lodges in Patagonia, this one has like a soul and an authenticity. And that's something that money can't buy, and money can't produce, this story and this history and authenticity that Cristina exudes. So going into the lodging options here. So this is one of the cabins. The way that it is that we have basically, there's 5 different rooms, 5 different cabins or cottages, you would say, and there's 4 rooms in each of those. So there's 20 rooms total. There's no room categories here. There's no superior, deluxe, junior suite, whatever. They're all the same. So the way that each of these kind of cottages is laid out, it's a really smart design that you come into kind of a central area, and then you have doors off, and then you have every room is the same in terms of having its ensuite bathroom. But what's nice is that each of these 2 rooms, when you close off this door, they can kind of interconnect these two rooms. So they can be completely private, but if you do have families that have two rooms, they do have their own annex. They can close off this door, and then they have this pass through just for them in it. So it's a really smart design. And here's just some kind of pictures of the room. These are all situated looking up the valley towards Cerro Norte. So it's wonderful just to sit here in this bay window and read a book and watch the changing clouds and sky there. You know, the kind of the vibe there is definitely keeping of the history and the vibe of the Estancia with all of the little period details that you have there. So these are rooms, and again, that's that view from those back windows. You're looking up the valley at Cerro Norte, and just constant amazing cloud formations that you see when there. In terms of common areas, we actually have two. The main one for overnight guests is the octagonal, the octagon. This is the central kind of common area, bar, dining room area. So it's a short walk. It's like two minutes from each of the kind of room blocks, depending upon which one you're staying in, to get into this area. So all the meals are included in our rates. This is a fully inclusive experience. So again, this is where breakfast and dinner are held. Most of the lunches, people are out on excursions, so they'll be having boxed lunch. A lot of that in the morning after having breakfast, they'll lay out a table where people can make their own sandwiches, or order what they want to take on the excursions that day. So these are just a couple shots of the common area, you know, and fantastic food, wine, cheese, very much kind of, you know, typical Argentine ranch food, but elevated, very much elevated. In the past year, they brought a consultant in here and has really, you know, increased the presentation and the quality of the food offerings at Estancia Cristina. This shot, we also, I'm not going to go into this because it just gets confusing, but we also have El Quincho. And El Quincho is another common area. It's right next to the old sheep shearing barn. And during, say, a guest coming to stay here a couple nights, they'll have most of the meals in the octagonal, which is exclusively for overnight guests. But they will have a chance to have like a lunch, generally on arrival day, in El Quincho, which is more of a kind of country family style dining services there. But what you're coming here for is you're coming for the excursions. I mean, again, going back to my introduction about the location of where it is in the national park, that's what's so cool about this, is that unlike being in Torres del Paine, or unlike being in going up to the Fitzroys and El Chalten, where there's lots of different hotels and there's tons of people on the trails, when you're a guest and you come stay at Estancia Cristina, you have this wilderness to yourself. The only people that are out on the trails here are overnight guests. And then we also do have day visitors that come, but the overnight guests generally don't see the day visitors, just because it's staggered differently in terms of the timing of the excursions. So, you know, these are just kind of some of the main points of entrance. The Estancia is right here. This is the Uppsala Glacier, which we're the only lodge, you know, near the Uppsala Glacier, so that we kind of have exclusive access to go and see the Uppsala Glacier, lookout point, refugios. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through kind of the highlight day hikes. I mean, I think for me, they're my favorite hikes in Patagonia here. And so I'm going to talk through these, and also to know which of these you can do as a day visit and which ones you can only do by being an overnight guest. So all of the excursions are guided. They are done in small groups. We don't have like a private guide and private vehicle like some other lodges do. So we do small groups for the overnight guests. And we have, you know, a huge crew of very well-trained professional guides there. The guy who has the concession for this, Alberto del Castillo, he also runs Fitzroy Expeditions. He's a longtime mountaineer climber in this area. So he runs a fantastic guide training program for all of the guides at Estancia Cristina. Kind of, like I said, the most popular thing, people want to get to Estancia Cristina to see the Uppsala Glacier. So the way that we can do this, that, you know, that isn't too physically exhausting, is that we take people up to the lookout point by 4x4 vehicle. So they have, some of them are pickup trucks with these covered beds, and then we have larger vehicles that hold more people. And you basically head out in the morning and you're driving up from the Estancia up onto this ridge to get to the viewpoint, looking out over that. And actually this picture is super cool. You can see icebergs here in the background. And this is the Cristina, the boat that the Masters family built, which is shipwrecked. On this is a great little, when guests are staying here overnight, if they want to just do something on their own, you can walk from the Estancia over to the boat, which they learn about in the museum. That's a really cool self-guided little walk. But this is kind of the discovery to go up and see the Uppsala Glacier. So this is the viewpoint looking out over the Uppsala Glacier. So we drive up there, and then from where you park, it's For me, it's a 5-minute walk. For some people, it might be a 20-minute walk, going super, super slow. There is a little refugio halfway along the walk to get up to this viewpoint. So if it is, howling wind and cold, people stop there to warm up a little bit. And then you get out to see this glacier. This viewpoint, to me, I think this is like the most amazing viewpoint in all of Patagonia. If you're standing up here, you're looking down on this lake, looking up at the glacier, looking onto the ice cap, and then the Uppsala Glacier is the main one, but you probably see about 7 or 8 other glaciers that are spilling off of the ice cap into this one area. So I'm just going to go through a couple pictures to show you the different moods and different views up here. Looking up, this is a Murajon, hanging glaciers coming off of the ice cap, the clouds spilling down off of it. It's just like every time you go up there, it's completely different. Just incredible, incredible viewpoint up here. And then when you turn around, this is looking back down into the valley where Cristina is located. So actually, that's that Cerro Norte that you see from the rooms looking back up the valley. And then, so we're looking down onto Lago Pilsen. It has so many different names. But this I actually just shot on my iPhone with no filter or anything. Just that color of the water is amazing. So people that are not super active, they'll go up, park, go do the viewpoint, do the short walk up for this viewpoint, spend some time there, and then they can drive back down to Estancia Cristina in the 4x4s. Those that are active, the very best thing is that once you're up here at the viewpoint, rather than returning in the 4x4 vehicles to the Estancia, you would begin this walk, which is down the Fossil Canyon, it's called. It's an 8-mile hike. It's all downhill. You drop 1,100 feet. So you're basically starting from that viewpoint and then you're dropping down into the Cristina Valley. It is, I'd say it's my favorite hike in Patagonia for sure. This Fossil Canyon hike. It's really amazing because you've been up there, all are surrounded by glaciers, and then you drop into this canyon, which had been carved out by glaciers. And kind of every couple hundred meters as you descend, there's different sediment layers of fossils that you pass through. So the guides know all of this, and they're talking about, millions and millions of years of geological time as you're dropping down through this. And it's just incredible. Huge nautilus shells you find, concentrations of deposits that look like whales. So it's just mind blowing that you start up with all these views of glacier, you come down through this like red rock canyon with little lagoons, and there's condors soaring overhead. And then you drop down into that big grassy valley and walk back to the Estancia. It's just the perfect day to drive up there by 4x4 and then hike 8 miles back down. So either of those two options you can also do as a day trip to Estancia Cristina. I'll talk about this more in the end about how that is and how the pricing is. I strongly encourage you to tell your clients they should go out and spend, 2 nights at Estancia Cristina. I think it's way different than coming out as a day trip visitor. This is another short walk that we offer, which is Cascada de los Perros. This, you basically are going up the valley from the Estancia, coming up into this kind of beach forest. It's a short walk. It's like 3 miles or something in total. You get up to Cascada de los Perros, and guests can kind of choose how far up they want to go up this waterfall or not. Even just getting up for a little view over the valley is worth it. But again, it's a short walk you can do from there. Another long hike. This is actually an uphill hike, but going up to Mirador Cristina, this is 9 miles and 2,200 foot ascent. So this is more, this is only for people that are coming and spending the night at Estancia Cristina or being an overnight guest, or they're going to have the opportunity to go do Mirador Cristina. This hike is different because you're actually going up into the forest. It's much more sheltered. There's a lot of wildlife up here. I was there last November, and we did see a puma up here, which was amazing. But you get up to this viewpoint. And actually, this picture is really good where we're looking down. Estancia Cristina is down the valley here. Here's that big lake we saw previously. The viewpoint for the Uppsala Glacier is like over here. And then this canyon is actually Fossil Canyon. So, the previous excursion I talked about, you're driving up to here, and then you're hiking down through this canyon and out and down the valley. So this hike, Mirador Cristina, is taking you up kind of away from all of this, and you're getting a panoramic view over the valley of Estancia Cristina and the Uppsala Glacier and way up onto the southern Patagonia ice cap. And that's looking down at Estancia Cristina as you descend from that walk. You can also do this Mirador Cristina by horseback as well. For people that are more experienced horseback riders that don't want to walk up there, they can do that by horse. Actually, maybe this might be my favorite, my favorite hike. I love them all, but Cerro Carnero. So this, you're actually leaving from Estancia Cristina, bordering along the lake and going up to this little promontory, which gives you a different view where you're looking, I guess, west of that point all the way up the valley. So this climbs up, and as you can see back behind the guide here, and the passenger, you can see the Estancia down below. And this would have been the previous hike, Mirador Cristina, kind of takes you up here where you're looking that direction. Over to the left would be where Uppsala Glacier is, and this one is a different direction. So all the hikes are kind of going to different points where you're just getting different views in different directions. And that's a picture of me up at the very top looking down at the Estancia, Uppsala Glacier, the lakes back here, Fossil Canyon, Cerro Norte, just a spectacular spot. And again, I just want to drill into you that when you're staying as an overnight guest here, all this landscape that you're looking at here, all this wilderness, this is exclusively for people that come out to Estancia Cristina. You know, there's no other way to get here than by boat. So you really do have this wilderness to yourself. There is a full stable there of horses and gauchos that live and work at the Estancia. So the horseback riding options are great. We have kind of, you know, more simple rides up the valley that are flat, heading up to the lake and a little refugio up there to have lunch or tea, snacks, or you can go up to Mirador Cristina or kind of tour this valley. So, you know, it's always a highlight. People that haven't been to Argentina and Chile, it's not just about riding horses, it's also about the gaucho culture and being with these people that live out here and look after the horses year round. It really adds to the experience. It's a kind of a cultural experience to be with them and go on rides. So this is kind of the more mellow ride up the valley, up to the lake, and this little hut up here. So they'll do tea over an open fire and kind of relax up here. And this is the lake that you're actually coming up to. You can walk up here as well, but we're most often do it as a horseback ride, getting up to this lake, and you have views of Cerro Norte. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous lake. And then this is other rides in the valley itself. This is up from the Mirador Cristina viewpoint. People had a horseback ride up here, and this is kind of exactly where I saw the puma in November. That's descending down from Mirador Cristina on horseback back to the Estancia. So as I said, you can come here as an overnight guest and stay 1, 2, 3, however many nights. We do recommend 2 nights. Staying by 2 nights, you have that option to return earlier. We don't include that for people coming out to spend only 1 night. And then we also have a day visitor option. So we do have quite a bit of day visitors that come out. The day visitors basically choose what they want to do. If they want to do a more active excursion with hiking, or they want to just do like the museum and a short self-guided walk around there. So getting into rates, this is for the day trip visitors. So I mean, the cheapest way to access and come out and see Estancia Cristina, it's a $200 per person thing to come out. You get that boat ride out, and then the boat ride back, lunch there, and then you have that short walk up to Cascada de los Perros, the waterfall. And then the horseback riding program is more going up to the Lago Pearson. And then Glacier Uppsala, that's the 4x4 drive up, 20-minute walk, see the viewpoint, and then coming back down by 4x4. And then the trekking is taking the 4x4 up Uppsala viewpoint and then trekking the 8-mile trail back down to the Estancia. So this is an option. We offer this from October 1st until April 30th, which has actually been extended due to from previous years where we have a longer opening season. Looking at the overnight rates. So, you know, you're looking at around, you know, for a double occupancy for 3 nights, $1,900 per person. That's about $630 per person. For people coming out to stay at the property, it opens October 15th. So day trip visitors can come from October 1st, but we don't start the lodging operations until October 15th. And then that runs until April 30th. And just, so like I said, for this year new, we had changed that boat schedule. We're only offering, so we have a separate boat called the Francesco, and that will return earlier to get people back to El Calafate around 5:15. And that's only available for people that are spending 2 nights or more. We used to not include the national park ticket. Now that's included in the rates, which is advantageous because that also allows you, when you go to Pretamano Glacier, that functions there as well. So a lot of people, since everybody's kind of going to see that glacier as well from El Calafate, they'll have their ticket coming from Estancia Cristina. And I did this yesterday just out of curiosity, because some people were asking, like, how does the price of Estancia Cristina compare to other lodges in Patagonia? So I kind of put the known ones here, the Explora properties in Chile and Argentina, and then Tierra Patagonia and Awasi, just to put this into perspective in terms of what the rates are. This is based on a per person per night, based on a 3-night stay. And I kind of had to, you know, choose an average, like some properties don't have suites or junior suites there. But just to put this into perspective, the kind of the value of the Estancia Cristina there, let me just see. Yeah. So John was asking, are most of the hikes open or recommended for novice hikers? I would say that downhill one, the 8 mile one, is potentially, we do have hiking sticks there for them. It's a downhill hike, so it's not like super exhausting to do that. I would say Mirador Cristina, not for novice hikers, and Cerro Carnero, not for novice hikers, but the other ones. The other ones are. What else? So I do have some sample itineraries. I'm going to send you all this in the follow-up at the end. I have like 1 night stay, 2 night stay, 3 night stay, kind of what an itinerary would look like in terms of the excursions they would do. I have like easy and an active one. So if you have people that are not super active, what I'd recommend for the excursions for that. And then I have ones for active ones as well. And then I put this together because people often ask, okay, what would it look like if people were going to fly up to this area? They want to see the Preterminer Glacier, but they also want to do Cristina. So this is what it would look like. You can fly it from Buenos Aires on an earlier flight, get to El Calafate, go out, through your DMC, whoever you're organizing the trip through, go out to visit the Preterminer Glacier that afternoon, spend the night in Calafate. The next morning, take the boat out early, stay at Estancia Cristina. They would have that, whole day to do an expedition, one of the treks. On day 2, day 3, again, a full day, they would choose, one full day thing or 2 half day things or whatever at Estancia Cristina. And then the next day they could take the early boat out since they'd spent 2 nights, and they could fly back to Buenos Aires and be back there by like 10 p.m. in Buenos Aires. So that would be one way to do it. The other way would be to fly up like later in the day from Buenos Aires, just overnight in Calafate. The next day, go out to Cristina, have, that day, have the next full day. And then on the day they depart, they can take the early boat out, and they can go from there, from Puerto Bandera. You're halfway already to Preterminer Glacier. So they can, once they return from Cristina on the boat, they can go out to see Preterminer Glacier and then return and spend the night in El Calafate. Or those that want to go explore more of Los Glaciares National Park, once they get back, they can do the 3-hour drive up to El Chalten and go trekking or backpacking in the Fitzroys as well. And that is it. I'm going to see. I did that under 30 minutes. I'm proud of myself.